All right. So I tried this before and it worked. So I am currently live on my Facebook business page. I guess that's what we're calling it, and my YouTube page. All right. Hi everyone. Welcome. You're probably watching the replay because I did not make any announcement about coming on live because I wanted to just go ahead and jump into it. I get to run errands with my grandmother today, and I say I get to because I've been fortunate enough to have the time and the space to take care of her. And so that was one of the blessings that I got. If you didn't know, I was fired from being a college professor. But even when I was a college professor, I made sure that I set up my schedule. I could, be there and support my grandmother. So I think it's an honor and a privilege now being a full-time entrepreneur that I get to have that flexibility. So I have to run some errands I get to run some errands, and I feel led to come on and do a video about you all, for you all. All right. So I'm going to do something very quickly. This is going to be a part 2 of a lesson idea I've been working on. I was not really ready yet. Jesus, do you want me to share it? And then he was like, okay, just do part 2 of it. So I was like, okay, I can do that. So I'm coming on sharing some things about a message that I felt this message for me, and then for other coaches, business owners, thought leaders, influencers who have followers. I know we don't like to say the word follower, but there are people who look up to us, look up to you for advice, or for inspiration, motivation. So anybody that's looking at what you're doing, asking you for advice, even if they don't come to you directly, there is some sort of influence you have over them. So, make sure we use our gifts and talents and powers for good. So this is a message to everyone in that space. If you're not officially in that space, but you still have influence over people, whether it's in your home, in your workspace, in your community, even if you don't have a title, this still counts for you too. But I'm really talking about the people who've been called to produce things in the world for other people, to teach, lead, serve. So this message is really for them. This also ties into my Get It Done Incubator. The doors will be closing soon. We start at the time of this video, November 11th. I won't offer it this way again, and this is not a scarcity type of thing. I just won't do it this way again. It came from divine action. I was like, okay, let me hurry up and do it. For me coaching 30 people, 35 people in 3 days at this coaching event, I saw a need. I was like, let me put this out there. So I am proud of what I did. It's a great offer. And then, so if I ever do it again, it will not be this format, and it won't be at this price point or this investment, as I like to say. So as of right now, it is $27.50 for a full day of strategic planning, and then 12 months of actually getting work done. I don't want to say it's an accountability group, but for you to understand it and connect with it, it is a high level accountability group. But I'm not the one that's like, hey, making sure you do this. I am there to make sure I provide space, time, opportunity for you to get your work done, offer you strategic counsel and advice about what's been keeping you from not doing those things done, and that you leave this experience with the product, service, or whatever you're offering, hopefully completed, but a lot closer than you were when you had it on your list, probably in January of 2021. Okay. So you can go drbernitaglenwhite.com/get it done. It's in the links below. But I wanted to say that before I get it out, I'm offering these different things. I am excited about it because I love doing that. When I was coaching those people, I gave them their next step, but then I wasn't with them along the way to make sure they actually did it, or that they could ask me follow-up questions. The results are in the follow-up. And that's in business and in anything that we do. So think of it that way. The information, you can book a call with me to have a conversation about it. You can go watch the webinar I have. You can go look at the sales page and all of those. Well, I like to say the invitation page, to get all of the information. There are other ways to work with me, but that's the one I'm focusing on. But like I said, If I were you, I would jump in it right now while it's set up, because when I do something similar again, it will not look like that. All right, let me jump into what I want to share with you today. So the message I have for coaches, thought leaders, influencers, business owners, anyone who has influence over other people who are leading people. This is coming from Numbers 20, uh, Numbers chapter 20, verses 5 through 13. I will read it quickly. I'm reading it out of the Amplified version, but I study out of the King James version. Okay, so I, yeah, so I read multiple, but those are my main two that I study from. And then I have some additional resources, but I'm going to read it very quickly. Romans, Numbers 20, chapter 20, verses 5 through 13. This is when the children of Israel are coming out of Egypt and they are in the wilderness. So verse 5, why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? It is not a place, it is not a place of grain or of figs or of vines or of pomegranates, and there is no water to drink. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the doorway of the tent of meeting, which is the tabernacle, and fell on their face before the Lord in prayer. Then the glory and brilliance, y'all know that's my thing. Then the glory and brilliance of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the rod, and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation and speak to the rock in front of them, so that it will pour out its water, in a way that you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their livestock drink fresh water. So Moses took the rod before wait. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had commanded him, and Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. Moses said to them, listen now, you rebels. We must bring you out. We must bring water out of this rock. Wait, must we bring water out of this rock? He was asking them a question. Then Moses raised his hand in anger, and with his rock, he struck the rock twice instead of speaking to the rock as the Lord had commanded. And the water poured out abundantly, and the congregation and the livestock drank fresh water. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you have not believed or trusted me to treat me as holy in the sight of the sons of Israel, you therefore shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. These were the waters of, I think it's Meribah, which stands for contention and strife, where the sons of Israel contended with the Lord, and he showed himself holy among them. Now, I've heard this story. I grew up reading the Bible, listening to Bible stories, all of those things. But I was listening to Pastor Keon when he talked something about the water. I won't get into his message, but the overall thing was, sometimes we hear these stories and we're like, oh, okay. And we forget how miraculous God really was at that time and still is today. But even at that time, so yeah, water came out of a rock. I don't know about you, but when was the last time you cracked open a rock and water fell out, and let's not get all scientific. Some people are like, well, the waterfalls and this, that, and the other. God created it that way, but I'm talking about there's a rock minding his own business, and you go hit it and water fell out. That's a miracle. The other miracle, which I think is important, that gets overlooked because even I overlooked it, was remembering how many people really left out of Egypt. How large was the children of Israel? About 6 million, I believe, at that time. And I think that was men, women, and children, because I think somewhere it says about 1 million men, but they didn't count the women and children. But even if it was 1 million, but I think it was about 6 million. So if you're a Bible scholar, you can correct me. I'm cool with that. But that many people and their livestock. So can you imagine how much water had to come out of that rock? So I just want you to get in that frame of reference. This is where we are. Now, I'm not going to talk about the first part of the lesson because I go into how the people were acting. And that's where Moses' focus was. But I'm going to do just the part about the leaders because one, time, and two, that's just where I believe Jesus told me to go. All right. So what we notice, and this is for again for the people who have people that are following them, and I'm gonna say silent ones too, because if you're out doing some things and people may not be commenting or liking or some of the things that you're doing, people are still watching you. Okay, so this counts for you too. So let's not wait until we accumulate this mass numbers of people that are coming to us. If we start acting like this now and putting things in place now, then we wouldn't have to worry about it. Because Moses, who's one of the greatest leaders in the Bible, I commend Moses. I love Moses. The story of Moses and his path is just so amazing. Even with all of that, he wasn't allowed to go into the promised land because he called the children of Israel rebels. I think that was the reason. One, he didn't call them rebels, and two, he did something opposite of what God said. So let's not, because God's gonna take care of the people. So let's not think that you're so special, or all of us, that we're not so special, like, oh, well. So there are two sides to that. Sometimes it's like, yes, God has given us gifts and talents and we are unique. So there are things that only we can do. Very true. And so that is a place of confidence and certainty to stand in. However, God's will is still powerful. So you act the fool and don't do what you're supposed to do when he told you to do it, he will bypass you and allow someone else to do. He will allow someone else to take the role so that his people can get what they need. So that's what I want to say. So let's not think, yes, you are unique, but God will get, the will of God will be done whether you participate or not. So if I were you, I would stay to make sure that I'm participating. All right, so what is the second part of this lesson I want to talk about? I have notes everywhere, but I'm going to try to like streamline this. So the one thing that Moses, so this is going to be Moses versus God, what they did and how they showed up in their leadership. The thing is, Aaron didn't get to see it either. I know Aaron was like, but what did I do? So that's another lesson to whoever's going to be on your team. They also need to be aligned and they need to be empowered. So when you're not doing what you're supposed to do, they get to check you. I want people like that on my team. Like they understand that I'm the CEO, I'm the one, this is my operation. However, if I'm not doing something that's in alignment, I need them to feel empowered to check me. And if you don't have teammates to do that, then you need to have some wise counsel around you. So you need some coaches, you need some accountability partners, some high level people in the mastermind, people who can check you when you're not doing right so that the whole ship doesn't go down, right? All right. So one thing that, oh, I should have put the verses next to these. This is a rough draft, so that's why. If you come into work with me in any other spaces, when I save these and actually do them, they will be in a members portal. But for right now, you get the raw version. So if you come watch it later, then like, what? This is why. So one thing that's different, that God showcased who he was, God's presence. That's why I love Brilliance. Is a vibe. It's a whole vibe. So God's presence in itself, he showcased that he didn't have to do anything, but just show up. And when you showcase something, it is out on display. So that's how God showed up on the scene. Moses, when he went to the people after they gathered them, he just showed up like, I'm so sick of y'all, but I'm just here because God said show up, right? They had already been complaining about, you should have kept us in Egypt, in bondage, in slavery. At least we had something to eat. And Moses was like, see here. Now, I don't know how long they had been in the wilderness up until this point, but it was enough for Moses to get on, for them to get on Moses' nerve. So when he went to the rock, God was ready to showcase his glory. Moses was like, I'm just going to be here at this rock because, yeah. So there's a difference between showcasing who you are and allowing your light and your essence to shine versus just being in the space because you have the title. All right. So then the next part of that is God spoke. God first spoke to, and again, we're in Numbers chapter 20, verses 5 through 13. So in verse 7, the Lord spoke to Moses. So God, that's why it's important for us to use our voice and to speak. So God spoke to Moses. God told Moses to speak. So if you are a leader, coach, influencer, thought leader, if you're not using your voice accurately or for purpose, then you're doing a disservice to the people that are listening to you. So God spoke Moses, and make sure you're, well, especially if you're a believer, your words really do need to come from God. So God spoke, he told Moses to speak. Moses, speak to the rock. There's a reason why God tells us to do things a certain way. Moses was like, speak. Now I'm not in Moses' head, but there is a little bit of, I believe, could have been a little, doubt, unbelief. Like, you want me to speak, and I'm supposed to think all of this water is supposed to come out and quench the thirst of 6 million people and their animals. Like, seriously. So think about that. I think they recommend somewhere between like probably about a half gallon to a gallon of, probably about a good gallon of water a day for us to really be optimal, like everything to be flushed out. That's like the number. They said 8 glasses, but a good gallon. So 6 million gallons if they just did that. And then I don't even know how many gallons of water animals drink. They had camels out there, which is, yeah, so that much water. Now, it's easy to criticize Moses, like, well, God, he brought y'all out of Egypt. Y'all crossed the Red Sea. Like, you should know this by now. But how many of us, God can perform all the miracles, and then we get to a point where either we're comfortable with the miracles, or it's still that little bit of, okay, I know you did that, but this, I don't know. So let's not be too hard on Moses, because I know that God probably told you to do something in your business, in your coaching space, in a keynote talk, or whatever you're supposed to be doing. God was like, do it this way. And you're like, I don't know about that. And that's kind of how I felt about the Get It Done Incubator, because that wasn't on my radar to do. But after that experience, I was like, oh, I feel like I should do something. God was like, cool, I'm glad you're open to that. Do this. And I'm like, but I did it anyway, right? So do what God says. If God says speak, speak. But did Moses speak? No. Moses struck the rock. He used force. Okay. Sometimes when we want to do our own thing, we have to be careful, because we will still get results, right? So God told Moses to speak and let the water come out. Moses decided, I'm going to hit the rock. Now, he was angry. He probably had some doubt. He hit it. And then the water still came out. We have to be careful. We still get results on some of the things that we're doing, but don't think it's because of us. That is because of God's grace and mercy, because he's going to give his people what he promised his people. Okay, so just be careful. You might want to check your actions and your motives on when you're doing things, when you're doing the opposite of what God said. And you're like, well, the results still happen, but then there are some things that happened after the fact. There were consequences to him striking versus speaking. The other part is, I forgot one. So when God spoke, let me back up. God spoke, Moses said words. They can go together. The words Moses said, he called them rebels. You have to be careful of how you treat your clients, your customers, the people who are engaging with you, with your complimentary content, people that you see, especially if you're in a space of influence and impact, coach, thought leader, influencer, whatever. You have to be careful how you treat people. And I know it's easy to clap back. Like, I get some messages sometimes and I'm like, seriously? But then you have to remember, this is not about me. This is for God's people, even if they don't show up godly all the time, right? So Moses said worse. He called them rebels. And God was like, what you're not going to do, yeah, they may have been acting this way, but what you're not going to do is call them out of their name. They are a blessed people, okay? So the people that are interacting with us, we have to be so careful, especially for those of us who God have trusted us with this next level of leadership and care and responsibility. So God says, speak. Oh, Moses spoke all right, but he didn't speak what God said. And then the part where he struck, that was man focused. When God said speak, that was spirit focused. There are a lot of times, I believe, that we put so much effort in doing what we think is right. When God said This is only going to work by my spirit, by my words. And that can be like, especially for people who are used to be in control, it's like, you don't want me to do anything. And you not doing anything doesn't mean that you're lazy. Having faith, like God said, because you didn't trust me or believe in me, that right there is so powerful. And sometimes I think it's a hard concept to grasp for a lot of us. Like, so you don't want me to go out here tagging all these people, writing all this content, shooting all these videos, making all these calls, or insert whatever that you think that you have to do. And there's a season when God is like, nope, just believe and trust. And I know it can feel like, but I'm not doing what I feel lazy. I'm not working. And there are times when it has to be spirit focused. There is a scripture, uh, I don't know where it is right now, but it says, not by power, not by might, but by the Spirit of God. When you do the word study, it's not by your resources. So, not by the money that you have, not by your human efforts that things are going to be accomplished, but simply by the Spirit of God. God will move in a supernatural way to get things done, but we have to trust and believe. So, that's where the point comes when God says, speak and you strike, or check yourself, okay? And then the next part is, I said, God is still going to give the results. He still saved the people. He still gave them water, but strife had entered because the water was, what does it say? The water, um, these are the waters of Meribah, contention and strife. So it was, I mean, yes, it was fresh water, but behind that, the undercurrent of that was strife and contention, because Moses is that energy. And we talk about that in the incubator part of the STEAM framework, is your energy. Again, energy where is in the spiritual realm, where God's spirit spoke, versus your effort. And then the energy of what is your vibe when you're doing the work. Because if you're typing out content with an attitude, or making videos with an attitude, or doing sales call, and you're not right, that energy carries, and then you wonder why you may not get the results. Or let's say you do get the results, because God is going to provide, because if that's something that someone needs, but then you're not going to feel, either you feel like you have to work too hard, they may be a headache client, or you may still feel like you're struggling and pulling to do something, and it's not an easy flow as you thought it should be. So check your energy around that, okay? Then and that's what I was saying. So God still gave the people the water, but it still had an undercurrent in it because of how Moses showed up. The other part of that is, I have sight. God still saw the children of Israel, whether they were rumbling, mumbling, complaining, all of that. He still saw them as his blessed people. Moses saw them as rebels. When we're in a situation, and even if we don't have the numbers of people we like to see on our socials, and people can say numbers don't matter, they don't care about that, but it is a type of metric. That's how some of the world operates in certain cases, where you want to do things, people immediately check your numbers to see if you have anything to say of substance. I'm not saying it's always right, because sometimes I'm like, if y'all actually sit here and listen and don't look at my little follower number, then you would, get a lot out of it. But I am grateful for wherever the number count is. And that's why I want to make sure I still show up accordingly and see the people as they are. I have this goal. I think as of now, I'm looking at one of my boards, 100,000 subscribers. Like, hey, let's just go for it. And so I want to show up like that. I think right now I have on YouTube 161 people, and on Facebook, I didn't set a number for Facebook, but I still want to show and be grateful for the people who click like, subscribe, who comment, and show up as they are. I want to have the sight that God has, that projects and see bigger than the problem, not the problem, but see bigger than what is current in the situation. Moses just saw the people as the problem. That's why I said problem. Moses saw the people as the problem, not as the people going into the promised land, right? So that's why he called them rebels. But God still said, these are my people. They are going into the promised land because that's what I promised them. So change your sight Focus on the sight that God is giving you versus on what you see in the current situation. You may have a business and the employees are acting a fool. Don't don't respond to them in that way. You may have, I don't know, an organization where there's nonprofit, for profit, and people are acting a certain way. You may have customers who are really trying you, right? Do not respond to them in that way. Respond, keep that sight of what God gave you when you first started whatever you were doing, so that you can make sure you also get your blessing, because it's both. God is going to do what he's going to do for his people, but you want to make sure that you honor God. Moses didn't get to go to the promised land, right? He could see it, but then God was like, nope, you're just not going to go. And I don't know about you, but I want to be in the promised land with the people. Like when my clients, customers, and whomever are getting the results, I want to make sure that I'm getting the results that God promised me as well. All right. So that is the message very quickly that I wanted to share with business leaders, coaches, influencers, thought leaders, all of that. Let me see. Looking at my notes. Yeah, so I looked at the bottom. It says because God holds us to a higher standard. Too much is given, much is required. So not everybody, a lot of people want to be in certain roles, but then they're not ready to handle everything that comes along with it. So be careful what you ask for. And if you're in the space, go back and repent to God and say you're sorry for calling his people whatever you call them, or for acting a certain way. Or here's the other thing, for not doing what he told you to do in the way he told you to do it. Again, and I'm tying this into the incubator, but anything where God tells you to do, get into a space where you are doing and you're hearing what he says. If it's a book, a project, a course, a program, another business, whatever it is, a conversation to be had, don't always think it has to be something huge, but anything, be obedient to how God says, do what he says, so that you can get the results. All right. So I'm going to end with that. In case you're wondering, that's part 2 of something I'm working on from Numbers chapter 5 and Numbers chapter 20, verses 5 through 13. And yeah, go back and watch the replay. Let me know your thoughts about that. I will be figuring out when I want to share the whole story, but I felt led to by Holy Spirit to share that with anyone who is listening, watching on the replay. Now, about the incubator, one last time, I'm not sure if I'm going to go live again about it, but it is about you doing what you're supposed to do. The name is in the title, the Get It Done. It's an incubator because there's a compressed amount of time, and I want you laser focused. And I'm doing it around this time because people tend to lay off the gas in November and December, and they're ready to ramp up in January. And I believe that's the wrong attitude to have. I used to do that, especially as a college professor. It was like, "Ooh, good, the semester is almost over." And I did set up my classes to where we could coast, because who wants to be doing all this work close to the holidays, right? But that's in a different space now. Especially if you are an entrepreneur or parallelpreneur, means like you're doing something on the side. This is the time for you to press the gas, because people are falling back. This is not your time to fall back. You don't want to wait until January and then start this cycle all over again. I talk about it in the webinar. He's like, oh, the holidays, I'm gonna chill out for a little bit, get my mind right, get ready for new me, new year. But then it's like, now you're nervous in your November. Because I started in October. I was like, you're supposed to own your October. And if you didn't own your October, I know you're nervous in November. And then if you're nervous in November, then you're going to be disappointed in December. And if you're disappointed in December, you're going to have a janky January. A janky January leads to a forgetful February. And then you got to start all over again. No, then you're going to have a miserable March. And then you're going to start all over again in April. And then the cycle continues. So why not notify November that we're going to get it together, make a decision in December that you're going to get this done, so that you can have a joyous, and I don't know another J, but joyous January, okay? So that you can have a fantastic February, and a money making March. I was making those up, but seriously, this is a time to focus. Don't let the holidays distract you. Yes, you want to enjoy your family, your friends, but then you also want to make sure that you're in a place, especially for this time next year. What could be like, how could your time this time next year be so much different than what you currently see right now? All right, so I think my grandmother is on her on her way. I am going to wrap this up. Feel free to book a call with me. My calendar is open as we do start on Saturday, and it is a full day of strategic coaching. You do have some pre-work to do. I hear exactly what you're working on. This is the opportunity where you take all of that shelf help from your desktop or your digital hard drives and actually do the work. They've been virtual shelf help. They've been sitting there and it's like, oh, I didn't get the return on my investment. Well, this is the time for you to do that. Get the work done, the return on your investment, the return on your experience, so we can get it done. My calendar is open. We start with the strategic coaching day so I can hear where you are. I get to hear it differently, a different perspective, because I'm not as close to whatever you're working on as you are. So you might not be able to see your next step. I give you that information, but not only do I just give it to you and say, all right, go, then we have 12 elevated study halls to where it's a set time where we're getting it done. To think back to college days when it was like, oh man, I got to focus. You'll be surprised what you have to do in a short amount of time when you make it a priority. Get it done. Any questions that you have, I can answer them. Find the resources. I know a lot of, based on the experiences, a lot of things. So you'll be surprised on what I can share with you in the moment. It is a curated experience. If things come up to where you need a workshop on something, I will do, live workshops or bring in guest speakers if needed, because this is about not just sitting and learning and getting. This is about execution and implementation and taking radical action. All right. The information is down below, drvernitaglenn-white.com/get it done. It'll give you the links to if you want to go straight and jump in at 2750. If you want to only show up for that strategic coaching day, you can still do the pre-work and then ask me questions and we can talk through whatever you're working on. That's 997, and you can go on about your business. You don't get to take part in the elevated study halls throughout the 12 weeks because we go from November, December, and make sure that we take that same energy into January. And that's cool if you choose not to. So that's an option. That way you still get the pre-work and things like that. You just don't get the additional support along the way. All right. So that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me. And wherever you are at the beginning of your day or ending your day, remember to be well, to be empowered, to be bold, and to be brilliant. Until next time. Bye.